Good morning and welcome. I wish to welcome everyone officially and declare the meeting open at 9 a.m. But I remind everybody that council's ordinary meetings are open to the public and are also live streamed to provide access to all community members. Attendees in the gallery may be recorded on this video and audio of the meeting, and this will be available on council's website. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we stand, the Gulnay people, and acknowledge my respect for their current and emerging elders and those in the dreaming. I thank them for their contributions that they have made in building our community. I'd now like to welcome our pastor, Mr. Rob McGarry from the Tully Family Church, to conduct the opening prayer.
Thanks, Teresa. First of all, I'd like to thank Council for all their input into the Tully Centenary, and many people in this room contributed, so thank you very much on behalf of the Tully 100 Committee. This morning I'd like to just talk a little bit about the wisdom that's in the Bible. The Bible is full of wisdom that relates to everyday life, and I think many people don't understand that. One of the Bible proverbs says, a person who meddles in other people's business is like someone who goes out into the street and grabs a dog by the ears, which I think is very true. 2 Thessalonians 5:18 states, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. We have a choice in life when things don't go the way we expect. We can whinge, complain, moan, feel sorry for ourselves, or approach things in good faith, looking for ways to improve things and working constructively, being thankful for what we have. This is the approach the Bible advocates. This applies to our relationships too, with our wives, husbands, partners, bosses, employees, should I say community members. How often do we complain rather than look for solutions? To be thankful even though things are not what we want. Often we have first world problems rather than dire issues that threaten lives and livelihoods. I heard a report recently that 95% of the homes in Australia are not habitable because of some sort of insulation issues. I think we need to take a trip to Africa and have a look at actually what people live in. So let's be thankful, and this morning we can be very thankful for what we have here, and we're thankful for the council that looks after us as a community. Let's pray. Father, we just thank you for this meeting this morning. Thank you for the people here this morning who give of themselves, of their lives, of their personal lives, for the sake of us in the community. And Lord, I pray to really bless this meeting. There would be a spirit of thankfulness and looking to you for solutions and wisdom. And so just commit this meeting into your hands. Thank you for the opportunity to get together like this. In Jesus' name, amen.
Do we have any apologies? No apologies? We'll move on to the declaration of prescribed conflicts of interest or declarable conflicts of interest. I now invite those present to use this opportunity to make public any prescribed conflicts of interest or declarable conflicts of interest in respect of the items in the agenda. Councillors should use this opportunity to disclose and or comment on other councillors and or staff interests in accordance with the Act and regulations. Are there any declarations? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. 1.1, minutes of the local government meeting. I now, take them as read. We have a mover and a seconder for the Councillor Chewy moved, Councillor Pervin seconded. All in favour? Okay, we move on to item 2, business arising from the previous minutes. Are there any business arising? Yes, Councillor Chewy.
Yes, good morning through the chair. Could I invite Ms Knoll and Ms Hack to the front, please? Good morning, ladies. Yeah, my question relates to grant funding that was approved at the last meeting, and my understanding is that the UFO Festival in Cardwell has since been postponed. So my question is, what impact does that have on the grant, and how does the group move forward? Sadly, it's because of the lack of volunteers, which is unfortunate. So if you're listening and you'd like to be involved, please step up. But I just wondered how the grant process works if plans have changed from the original application. Thank you.
Through the chair, good morning, Mayor, good morning, councillors. And thank you, councillor, for that question. The council hasn't been officially advised of any cancellation of the UFO festival. If there's a postponement, that's within the guidelines. But if we're advised that it is officially cancelled, that will be responded to in accordance with the guidelines, and it will depend on the nature of the cancellation or postponement. So we can't provide a specific response at this time.
Thank you for that. We'll move on to 3.1. Don't go anywhere, guys. Community grants and support annual program review. Hand over to Ms. Hack for that.
Thank you. I'm here to present the Community Grants and Support Annual Program Review. Council provides community grants and support to respond to community priorities and need and create a more sustainable and resilient community by delivering social, including health and wellbeing, cultural, environmental and economic outcomes through the funding streams. The Community Services team have undertaken a desktop review of the Community Grants and Support Program guidelines through consideration of internal and community feedback since our major review undertaken mid-2023. The major outcomes of the review for the Community Grants and Support Program guidelines, which are put before Council for consideration, are: 1. Amalgamate the current two streams of community and economy and environmental sustainability into one stream of community projects and initiatives with the rationale that most applications meet one or more of the funding criteria. 2. 3 major funding rounds per year instead of 2 for the amalgamated community projects and initiative streams. 3. Remove the percentage weighting for the community projects and initiatives stream and replace with a 0 to 5 rating system in the assessment stage. 4. Include planning and design for projects in the eligibility criteria of the Community Infrastructure Program. And 5. Add an eligibility assessment stage to the application process for relevant program streams, including the Community Projects and Initiatives stream, Community Infrastructure Program, and ANZAC and the Battle of the Coral Sea Commemorative Program. Further details are in the background section of this report. And so the recommendation is that Council adopt the revised 2024-2025 Cassowary Coast Regional Council Community Grants Program Guidelines as presented within this report.
Thank you, ladies. It's very exciting to see this all happening, so congratulations on making it happen. And I think the community were well pleased to see everything combined, because sometimes people get confused about where they should go. My question is, because of the popularity of the community grants and the grants, will Council be holding any more workshops? Because the people sometimes are disappointed when they think they've done everything right, and sadly they've missed a couple of things. So that's my question. Thank you.
Through the chair, so assistance to organisations seeking grant funding will increase with the new format from twice a year, visiting all 4 libraries, to 3 times a year. Individuals and organisations can also book a time to see council officers year-round to assist via phone or face-to-face at the Shire Hall.
Great work. Councillor Jessup.
Yes, good morning. Through the chair. Can you explain to the public how this program is funded?
Through the chair, the community grants program is considered for funding every year by council. So council consider that through our general rates, and an allocation each year is part of our annual budget process. So funding for the 24-25 community grants program was considered yesterday, and there's an allocation in our budget the year coming forward, and I guess an important allocation to support those community groups that improve the Cassowary Coast as a great place to live.
Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Chair. Ms Hack, and I noticed that we're talking about planning and design is going to be included in these new streams. I'm assuming it's, well, no, I'm going to ask, can the planning and design be around a bigger project that they need that may be externally funded about assisting with that, or must it be planning and design related to a specific project that will lend itself to this application?
Through the chair. Councillor, the planning design is only for the community infrastructure stream, and it's to get a project shovel ready, and it can, and that was included specifically so that helps the community groups in their pre-work to apply for much bigger grants than what council has a capacity to provide, such as state and federal grants.
No, thank you. That's exactly where I thought it was going. So, well done. I'm happy to second the motion, Chair.
Get that, guys? So I also had a question, and it's probably more towards the CEO. It's not really a question, but if we could clarify. So we used to actually do this before, but it wasn't named as put in as a financial contribution out of the rates. It was always mentioned as in-kind support. Is that right?
Yeah, through the chair, and often council would be asked to provide in-kind support for events, and we found that providing that in-kind support took officers that were improving the amenity of our precincts, or mowing the local park, away from those activities. But it also didn't give an opportunity for local business to be funded to undertake some of these activities as well. And I think it's one of the strong points with the community grants is that this funding is going to these community groups and then feeding into local business to provide some of the services and materials that these groups are requiring for to continue to run the activities that they do.
Thank you. So we've got a mover and a seconder. All in favour of that? Carried. Thank you. We move on to 3.2, fees and charges waiver or reduction policy. Ms Knoll will present.
Item 3.2, fees and charges waiver or reduction policy. The purpose of the fees and charges waiver or reduction policy, which is put before... Sorry. The purpose of the fees and charges waiver or reduction policy, which is put before council for consideration, is to provide a transparent and equitable approach to the consideration of a request for a fee waiver or fee reduction of council's adopted fees and charges. The policy applies to eligible organisations as defined in council's community grants and support program guidelines. Consideration of a request for a fee waiver or fee reduction will only be considered if the purpose of the request is an eligible project activity in accordance with council's community grants and support program guidelines. The policy only applies to the fees and charges as defined in the policy and does not replace any permit application, booking or hire process required by council. The policy does not apply to council rates and rebates, dog registrations, infrastructure charges or refund exemption or reduction due to error. It is the intent of the policy that the application for a fee waiver or fee reduction will not unduly burden the applicant and council with additional application, assessment or approval processes. The recommendation put before council for consideration is that council adopt the fees and charges waiver or reduction policy as presented with this report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Knoll. I have a question. So in the fees and charges waiver, it says that there's 100% waiver of a local laws activity. Could you just give me an example of what that would look like, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Currently in the 23-24 fees and charges, there is that provision, and that could apply to an event permit application fees for a not-for-profit to hold an event on council land.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Jessup. All in favour? Carried, thank you. We move on to 3.3. amendment to the adopted 2024-2025 Register of Fees and Charges. And Ms Knoll will present.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is asking Council to consider concessional photocopying and local law prescribed activities for not-for-profit entities. Council is asked to consider two minor amendments to the 24-25 Register of Fees and Charges adopted at the local government meeting of 23rd of May 2024, resolution number LG 1732. Number one, the first proposed amendment is for the concessional photocopying rate offered at council's libraries be amended from 50 pages per day to 10 pages per week from Sunday to Saturday per eligible concession card holders at all of council libraries. The second proposed amendment is to include the clause, not-for-profit and charity organisations may apply for waiver of fees. Proof of not-for-profit status must be provided. This is to apply to local law prescribed activity fees and charges only. The amendment to the local library concessional printing limit is required to minimise the overuse of the current concessional rate of 50 pages per day. It is considered that reducing the concessional rate to 10 pages per week will still provide a level of support to those community members who require free of charge printing for ad hoc and essential matters such as proof of identity, and that relates to documents. The addition of the not-for-profit clause for local laws prescribed activities, fees and charges is due to an amendment to the 2024-2025 adopted Register of Fees and Charges, where the not-for-profit category has been removed. This amendment will provide for an application process by a not-for-profit entity for a fee waiver or reduction to be considered in accordance with Council's fee waiver or reduction policy and community grants and support guidelines. These proposed amendments are provided for in the Cassowary Coast Regional Council 24-25 Register of Fees and Charges as attached. The Council is asked to consider the following officer recommendation, and there is a minor amendment to that recommendation. That Council adopt the following changes to the 24-25 Register of Fees and Charges adopted at the local government meeting of 23rd of May 2024, resolution number LG 1732. A. Library services photocopying charges for eligible concession card holders only. Remove the clause printing is limited to 50 pages per day and replace with printing is limited to 10 pages per week from Sunday to Saturday, with implementation to commence from 1st of August 2024 to provide for the introduction of technology in the library systems. And B, local law prescribed activities. Add the clause not-for-profit and charity organisations may apply for waiver or reduction of fees. Proof of not-for-profit status must be provided for an applicant to be considered for a fee waiver or reduction. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the average age in a lot of not-for-profit groups is quite advanced in this day and age, sometimes trying to find their not-for-profit status is not an easy thing to do. Is there any way that we could keep that on file, or would you suggest that the not-for-profits, if they've done it once, they probably need to keep it on file as well if they're doing applications going into the future?
Through the Chair, we can do that through an ABN lookup.
Okay, all right.
Very good. Councillor Purvin.
Yeah, Ms Knoll, just in relation to this, the library's obviously our biggest place for doing the photocopying. They were consulted about this change in number of pages. You know, they see these people come in day out, and they were, you know, the ones guiding us to this, or
Through the Chair, yes, they were consulted around this. Yes, okay. And through the Chair, they're also just to provide some background for the amendment to the recommendation. That's to allow for the print management system to come in place. So the library have been fully consulted through this process, and it's inclusive of all library branches.
I think through you, Chair, if people are printing upwards of 50 pages per day, then probably council has a responsibility to not be competing with some of those local businesses as well.
Yep. Thank you. Right. Do you have a mover?
Oh, sorry. Just a
Sorry.
question. Yeah. Happy to move.
Yeah,
but,
no, you're right.
Just following on from Councillor Baines' question, for the non-for-profits, well, so will there be a list? I mean, various people representing the same group can come in and do photocopying. So will there be a list at each library of the non-for-profit groups? Like the president might come in one week to get something done, and then the secretary might come in the next week. Do you know what I mean? So will there be a... Do you know where I'm going?
They'll need to just provide that
Through
ABN or...
Through the chair, this is there's two separate matters being considered here. One is the printing concession for concessional card holders, and that might be a seniors card or a student. They will, at the moment, that they're not in the library system, so the use of their technology, they'll have to be a library membership category, and that will provide the parameters for that. So there will be no interaction with the library officers per se.
And the business, the not-for-profits?
Not-for-profit businesses aren't eligible for this. It's just
Non-for-profit charities, I'm saying. So
not for. No, they're not. It doesn't apply to the charities. This is the fee waiver or reduction, and that could be an event permit. So that has an application process through council. They come into customer service, they fill out the form, or they fill out the form online, and there'll be another section in that form that they can apply for the fee waiver or fee reduction. There is a process already, so we're going to streamline that process so it's not as complicated.
Yeah, thank you. I was a little bit confused, so that's answered my question. And perhaps that might be considered in the grant workshop as well. That might be something that might be included in, because often it's a non-for-profit groups that are trying to get community grants, so that might be some education process in that as well, as a thought. But thank you.
Through the chair, yes.
Any further questions? No? Trudy, you moved it. Councillor McLeod, second. All in favour? Carried. Move on to Economic Activation and Tourism, 4.1, Growing the Cassowary Coast Shopfront Improvement Incentive Scheme. Mr. Horton will present.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning, Council.
Mr. Horton.
We'll give this a red hot crack. Economic Activation and Tourism, Council, it's number 4.1. The Growing of the Cassowary Coast Incentive Scheme policy is proposed to work in partnership with commercial properties and business owners to facilitate and support the revitalisation of shop fronts. Improving shop fronts can be positively influence the perception of the Cassowary Coast and create a more inviting and interesting place to live, work, shop, dine, invest and experience. The purpose of this report is to recommend the Growing the Cassowary Coast Incentive Scheme policy for endorsement by Council. Council's contribution will be in accordance with the funding arrangements outlined in the policy. The scheme will also ensure that local businesses and local tradesperson will gain work through the scheme. So that's the main component that we're chasing, is to ensure that our businesses and our tradespeople around the area are working together. The policy is part of Council's ongoing commitment to revitalise the Cassowary Coast region as a dynamic and vibrant destination that positions the region as a lifestyle investment and tourism destination, which we also see with the commitment of the Mission Beach Master Plan and so forth, moving forward with that project, which adds benefit to what we're doing. The Growing the Cassowary Coast Incentive Shopfront Improvement Policy will continue Council's ongoing commitment to the region's growing stronger together, our economic strategic goals that we have in place, which you can see in the report, Council. So the main thing is we're going to encourage the business owners and operators to invest in their shop front using this grant to cover a portion of the costs. It is a requirement of the Growing the Cassowary Coast scheme policy that the council's contribution is to be matched dollar for dollar by the applicant to a maximum council contribution amount of $5,000. So that'll be part of the agreement and funding once we get the quotes and so forth, Council. The applicant may wish to do, of their own accord, contribute additional funds beyond the match contribution, which we've seen a lot of that with the original Cassowary Coast Facade Improvement Scheme, Council, which is written in the background of the report. At that time, we had 41 applications, which Council funded over those 2-year period for an amount of $71,495.49, with an overall spend of $269,431.15, which is a 1 in 4 type of spend on a number of the properties, council. The applicant's proposed works are to be carried out and detailed in the approved proposal within 6 months of signing the letter of agreement. Funding will be released to the successful applicants once the agreement has been executed. At the completion of the works, the following information is required: a signed statement confirming the improvement works have been finalised, a tax invoice from the applicant and licensed contractor of the works, photos of the shopfront prior to the works being completed, photos of the new shopfront, and consent that the applicant, from the applicant I should say, for council to use the before and after images of the facade shopfront for commercial purposes, and a summary of the works undertaken, council. It's a discretionary scheme. Council reserves the right to approve or refuse applications made under the policy at its sole discretion. Funding will be allocated through funding rounds and will undergo an assessment to be subject to council approval until all allocated budget has been spent or the scheme year has ended. Applications under the scheme will be assessed by our assessment panel against assessment guidelines in accordance with the policies. Applications will be ranked and based on that assessment criteria, and council reserves the right to seek further information, clarification of the proposal and so forth through that process. Council may authorise the approval of the grant funds if the funds are available within the budget approved by council. Grants awarded based on merit, and not all applications that meet the assessment guidelines will be funded, council. The policies in place that is attached to this, council, is the purpose and objective. There's a scope, and then you've got the procedure. So the funding arrangements are set out in there, and then it talks in 4.2, the eligibility criteria. So we're talking about the facade of the building. We're talking about that presentation to that. It shows which locations, council. So we're talking about our central business districts and our business fringe in our main two areas, which is Innisfail and Tully. Our tourism and business precincts and local business precincts at Mission Beach. And then we got the Cardwell Tourist Precinct and the business precinct down there. Then we got our village areas, which are the local business. So you're talking about your main little village areas, Alarish and so forth. And I suppose the big one that includes it is the commercial buildings frontage of the Bruce Highway, or the tourist route, which takes in Innisfail Japoon Road, Silkwood Japoon Road, and those sort of networks, council, which is on that frontage, which is part of our scenic amenity overlay mapping, which is in our scheme. So if people want to understand that further, they're quite welcome to give us a bell and talk through those properties. So that's there, council. And it outlines all the improvement works must be external and visible from the street, and may include branding, advertising, external materials, improving accessibility, window treatments, repair, replacement of new awnings, the improvements under the awnings, that signage hanging in the streetscape, so elements around green walls, window boxes, those types of things, council. So cleaning, painting, landscaping, so that's all in the policy for us to assess when applications come in through that, and there'll be a guideline provided.
Very good, thank you. This is something that I think is really, really good. We often get the complaints from the community about how untidy the place is looking, and a lot of the time it's not something that council owns. It is a privately owned business, so it's a very generous program, and I encourage all of the businesses to get on board and to help make our region look clean and tidy. This can only have a positive outcome for all of the community, given that it's great look for those that want to invest here if we've got things tidied up a bit. That's my opinion. So anybody else? Councillor Jessup.
Yeah, so this, through the chair, sorry. This funding is available for the business owners and the building owners.
Through the chair, yeah, the building owners, so the business that is working at it, if they don't own the building, they've just got to go through their owner to get consent to do the work. So that's listed in the criteria in the policy.
Okay, and my next question was, if there's a strata titled building, so more than one owner, do they prepare this as one applicant, or do they do separate?
Look, I think you could consider both if they're willing to do the whole building together. I think it'd be easier if they separated it from a personal point of view around signing the agreement and the binding of that agreement with each owner. I think it'd be look. I wouldn't say that it's not available to do, but from the way this is sort of written, I'd probably put it individually, because you might have different painters, different contractors doing the work. But look, I'm sure we're willing to consider that whole building and the two owners if they sign the application together and put in their quotes together. If they're using the same contractors, I'm sure we can work through that, Councillor.
Councillor Baines?
Two pieces, I think, Mr. Horton. So it's probably important to reiterate this is up to $5,000. The business owner doesn't have to come up with a $10,000 project. They can scale it up to whatever they want to invest with the dollar and dollar for council. And the second part, so you've got, well, I suppose it's not a not-for-profit anymore, but say the old ambulance station down on Fitzgerald Esplanade in Innisfail itself, they could apply. They've got a not-for-profit working out of there, but that it's just put the application in and see how it flies on its merits.
Through the chair, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Are there any? Yeah, Councillor McLeod?
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair. We saw a great uptake and the town looking so much better last time we had this scheme. Very similar. The one thing I am grateful for the team is that you're eligible if you're using local contractors. You can't get people from out of town. We need to keep our money local, and it creates jobs and all the rest of it, which is what we're looking for our region. So hats off to the team for bringing this back to the table, and we look forward to our whole region looking a little bit more sprightly than what it is now. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Jessup?
Sorry, I just have one more question. We all know how hard it is to get trades sometimes, and this is 6 months. If we're having trouble getting some trades, can that be extended at all?
Through the chair, we definitely looked at that last time. I think with this type of program, we want to be pretty upfront with the business owner and working with them in the first couple of months around where they're at, especially when they put their application in and their costings around that from the contractor and understanding of when that work's going to be programmed. So we'd really want to understand all that and really work with them to do that, because it's no good putting in the quote and getting the thing and then, it's going to take them 5 months to get there, because it's just not going to happen. Whereas other applications, so that'd be a consideration of us when we do our assessment and really going through that. And it's just a back and forth discussion, and that's what we're really chasing, and that commitment from the owner and ourselves to try and bring this program and policy, and the interaction with the community to fruition.
Councillor Pervin?
Mr. Horton, just in with this, so for example, a shop owner could come in and get some cleaning done on their building, $1,000. Then they want to do some painting. Is there, in the policy, is there a number of times that they can actually put an application in?
Through the chair, it'll go out as like the grant funding. It'll go out for a round. So we'll pick those rounds definitely to give us those times around that, to deal with what funding we've got as well, and what the outline of that funding is to support this program. So yeah, we'll be put out, and it'll be, we might do one, depending on the money we've got and so forth through the funding. So look, you'd be working out what you want to do if you're putting in an application. So if you're going to clean it and paint it, I'd do it in this, together, or you might just put in cleaning and wait then for the next round to come out when that's funded and go forward with painting the next time.
Okay.
So,
I think through the chair, worth highlighting again the 23rd of May that council did endorse those projects and approve those projects through the Cap D funding. So there is $100,000 of Cap D funding that's been allocated to fund this program if council so wish to see this policy endorsed and approved today.
yeah.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions? Moved by Councillor Baines. Sorry. You can second it then. All in favour? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks, council.
Thank you. Move on to 5, Governance, Environment and Finance, 5.1, and we have the Risk Appetite Statement, and we welcome Ms. Zaffron to the table. that door? Good morning.
So Council's Enterprise Risk Management Committee and councillors recently reviewed the Risk Appetite Statement, which forms part of Council's Enterprise Risk Management Framework. As a result of this consultation, Council's Risk Appetite Statement has been updated to reflect Council's goals and objectives and is attached in Appendix A of this report. The recommendation is that Council adopt the updated Risk Appetite Statement 2024 as attached in Appendix A. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? Happy to move. Moved by Councillor Jessup, seconded by Councillor Reid. Everybody in favour of the statement? So move, carried on. Go to 5.2, which is the policy review. Ms Kerr will present. That was easy.
Lightning fast. Thank you. So in accordance with Council's policy framework, we regularly review our policies to ensure that good governance and compliance with legislation and standards is in place. All the policies referred to in today's report are attached with track changes for the reader where possible. Today's policies are the Internal Audit Charter, which has been reviewed and updated to align with current practices and standards, and the intermittent sealing of unsealed roads, which has been reviewed and updated in accordance with our current requirements. The recommendation today is that Council adopt the following policies: the intermittent sealing of council roads and Internal Audit Charter.
Do we have any questions on that, team? No? Councillor Pervin? Councillor Pervin's moving it. Councillor Baines, second. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. We move on to 5.3, Cassowary Coast Regional Council Audit Committee, appointment of independent chairperson.
Thank you, through the Chair. In accordance with Section 210 of the Local Government Regulations, the Audit Committee must be comprised of at least 3 and no more than 6 members. Council currently has 5 members, including the Mayor, a councillor and 3 independent external members. The current Audit Committee Chairperson, Mr Mark Andrzejczyk, tenure ceases on the 24th of August 2024. Council called expressions of interest for an independent Audit Committee Chairperson closing 13th of May. A total of 8 expressions of interest were received, with 2 shortlisted and interviewed. The recommendation is that Council appoint Mr Campbell Charlton as the independent chairperson of the CCRC Audit Committee for a term of 4 years commencing on the 25th of August 2024. Thank Mr Mark Andrzejczyk for his 8 years service as Council's Audit Committee Chairperson from 2016 to 2024. And note that Council will be advertising a further expression of interest to appoint an independent Audit Committee member with a focus on engagement with potential Cassowary Coast region applicants via local communication channels.
Thank you. So I also would like to thank Mr Andrzejczyk for his 8 years of tenure through Cassowary Coast Audit Committee. Thanks very much for his service and all his commitment that he put in, and I'd also, at the appointment of Mr Campbell Charlton, welcome him on board if that's what's accepted here today. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Baines.
Reiterate your sentiments, Madam Mayor. The existing chair has been a great asset to the Audit Committee. Mr Charlton, I believe, depending on which way this rolls today, will be a great asset towards the Audit Committee in the future. And Vanessa, Ms Kerr, yeah right, a can of Coke. Ms Kerr did mention that we will be going out for application again because there will still be a vacant position as Mr Charlton's come out of the board and on into the chair position. So I encourage people in the Cassowary Coast region to please apply, be of interest, come in and have a look at how this works. So also I'm happy to move the motion.
I also believe that they've changed the way that the EOI goes out, is that right? Or how
yes,
the applicant can apply? Sorry.
Through the Chair, thank you. Yes, we will be tweaking the expectations this round for the independent member to be a bit more business acumen rather than financial and ICT probably focused, which is what we've gone out with in the past.
Councillor Chewy?
Through the chair, yes, just following on from those comments, what criteria is required for a person to be on the audit committee? Because there is a lot of numbers crunched. I've sat through some of the meetings, and so just to have the right type of person apply that might be interested, what would be? Is there a criteria?
Through the chair, look, I think through the next DIY process, we are really looking for someone with a local flavour that understands the region. We said someone with some business acumen, but they certainly don't need to be an accountant. We've got some very experienced members on the audit committee already that have a strong background in finance, ICT. So yeah, we would be seeking anyone with an interest in being involved, certainly putting an expression of interest forward, and then we'd work through an interview process and shortlisting that would look at those. Absolutely, you could be running a hairdressing business and have some acumen in that and still contribute and be a very important part of our audit committee.
Very good.
Yeah, Councillor Reid?
Through the chair, I see Mr. Charlton's got a very qualified background in his previous position. Where does he currently reside?
So the chair is based out of Townsville.
Not Cairns.
Oh, Cairns, sorry. Cairns.
No problem. So we've got a mover in Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Chewy. All in favour of that? Thank you. Welcome aboard, Mr. Charlton. Yes, and thank you, Mr. Androvic. Move on to 5.4, delegations of council to the Chief Executive Officer Annual Review.
Thank you, through the chair. As per the Local Government Act, section 257(5), council is required to undertake an annual review of council to Chief Executive Officer delegations, with the opportunity for council to amend or rescind delegations as appropriate. It is recommended that all powers referred to in the document titled Register of Delegations, Council to CEO, are hereby delegated by council to the Chief Executive Officer of council, pursuant to 257 of the Local Government Act.
Thank you, Ms. Kerr. I'm just looking for my little questionnaire that I have. I don't think I've got it with me. Does anybody have any questions referring to the delegations? Councillor Baines.
A comment piece, I suppose. Thank you, Madam Mayor. A lot of the time there's a misunderstanding around these delegations of the powers and where they go. Generally, the delegations are around business as usual within council. You know, do we want to see every single piece of paper coming across the table? Sometimes it is just that business as usual piece. And probably if people are concerned still about the perception around the delegations of power, there is an appendix at the back of the list, and it's a great read. Please have a read through the delegations and, you know, get an understanding of what the business as usual piece of council can be. But have a look at the appendix at the back, because it has a section on the powers that cannot and must not be delegated. And it's a little different in each of the sections. Is that right, Ms. Kerr? Those appendixes are slightly different.
Through the chair, there is one appendix to the register which outlines what officers are still constrained in what they can do, even though they have delegations, such as they still can't make a decision that's outside of budget or policy or legislation. And then there is also an annual checklist that we ensure that we're not delegating powers that should not be delegated, such as under the Planning and Environment Acts.
Yeah. So further to, I think it's just important to reiterate with people that council is in charge of the strategic management of our organisation, and people need to realise that some of the day-to-day stuff, it would take months to get them through if they had to go through council meetings.
Absolutely.
And we'd be all here till midnight ticking off every single thing that happens. So You know,
So yeah,
people
good
need
explanation
to
actually to read that appendix
yeah,
in the back.
just
Yeah,
inform
absolutely.
yourselves. It's
Yeah.
you know. Thank you.
Any further questions
Oh.
on the delegations?
No, I'm happy to move as well.
Moved by councillor Baines, seconded by councillor Jessup. All in favour? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanking you. Move on to 5.5, monthly financial performance report. Ms. Stravarsky will present. Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. More finance.
More
That's right,
finance.
so here we are. I'll start. I've got a number of reports. Hopefully, we can get these through with you. The first one is around the monthly report. The Chief Executive Officer is required by Section 204 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to present the financial report at a meeting of the local government once per month. The financial report must state the progress that has been made in relation to the local government's budget for the period of the financial year up to a day, or as near as practicable to the end of the month before the meeting is held. The purpose of this report is to promote sound financial management and accountability by presenting the Council's performance versus budget expectations. This report as at 31st of May 2024. The budget information in this report reflects those amendments also made as part of our budget review process and which was adopted on the 23rd of May 2024. It's just some highlights. I think you'll note that Council is doing well against budget, but I'll go through briefly. Operational revenue year to date is 88.8 million, which is greater than budget by 787k, with sort of 90% of the year gone past. Operational expenditure year to date is 87.9, which is over budget, that should say, by 159k. So what really this means at the end of the day is that we have got a favourable position of 628,000 against our budget. So that's some good news. I think the other thing that's really positive here is around our ability to have spent our capital budget, 87% spent of the 67.4 million that we had budgeted. This is a great result given the difficulty and the high demand for partnering with contractors and businesses out there, that we're actually able to get that work done. So well done to those teams doing those work. And then also we have a healthy cash balance of 59.8 million. You'll note further down in the report that we're doing really well in terms of interest. Interest rates at the moment in terms of savings are good. We've got 1 million in the last period, 3.5 million over the last year, so doing well in terms of our investment. So that should be something that we should important to look at. I will highlight the issue around contract labour. You probably have noted.
Question. That was my question.
Yes.
So you can do
I
it
know.
anyway.
So the one area you may note is our increase in spending contract labour against our budget forecast. Budgeting on our contract labour is never an easy thing. It's not a fine art. We can't always anticipate what happens during the course of the year. We can have unplanned sick leave. We also have resignations. And in terms of some of our critical areas where we have frontline staff, we do need to fill those roles with contract labour. So, and as we all know, there is an increase spend when we have contract labour. So that's some of those areas. We also have a trainee and apprenticeship program. So we are funded for trainees and apprentices, a small amount, about 15k per apprentice by the state government, but clearly we don't pay them 15k, we pay them a lot more in that space. And so this is where that falls in the allocation of contract labour, so it's accounted for in our contract labour. We are very committed to developing local apprentices and also trainees. I think this is a really positive thing. We know there's high demand in the market and we can't get those people, but clearly we need to forecast that better. Some roles we've recruited faster than we budgeted for, so we were going to have these roles, but a good thing, because some roles we find it very difficult to recruit to, so therefore we hadn't budgeted for being able to get some of those guys on board sooner. And the other thing is as well is some of the pressures that we've had in terms of some roles when we budgeted, We budgeted those roles against capital, so that they would fall in capital space. Not everyone's daily job can be accounted for or billed to a capital project, because sometimes they have other tasks, administrative tasks, people management tasks, training tasks. So we haven't been able to fully account for them against capital, and those costs have fallen into our operational budget. It is a $500K variance. It is covered within our overall budget, but we can do better, and we are looking at ways to do that in terms of monitoring. So people and safety, I know, are working with the finance team. They're working with the service areas around better forecasting, also better monitoring. I know that you may already have been made aware by our Chief Executive that any contract labour hire in excess of 3 months will go to the CE to be aware of that. So there will be some improved monitoring moving forward in this space.
Thank you. I was just about to ask you that question. Was there a limit on how long we have contract labour for? There's also a perception that we've got a very healthy cash balance. So why do we need to have a rate rise? Could you please put an explanation on that, or?
Yes, sure, certainly, Mayor. Yes, we do have a healthy cash balance. One of the things that we do need to be aware is the Queensland Government sets a target for unrestricted cash, we need to have about $40 million of unrestricted cash. So a good council would have 4 months of operating budget liquidity, and this is very much around we may have a critical infrastructure failure, but let's just say something will happen in water or sewage or etc., and we need to pay for that, and that might not be something that we'd planned. So we need to have that healthy cash balance to do that. We may have a disaster. We might not be able to wait for emergency funding. We might need to get on with the work ourselves. So this is really important, why we do keep this, and are very committed to keeping a healthy cash balance as part of our budget.
I think through the chair too, the team's investment with that cash has demonstrated a significant benefit for council as well, as is in the report. Through the chair, I just wanted to highlight, I guess, from a risk perspective there, we've been talking for some time around the timing of the payment of the financial assistance grants, and for local governments across Australia, this potentially an issue as we move forward. So last year, as you're aware, those financial assistance grants were paid in advance on the 28th of June. Obviously being the 27th of June at the moment, we haven't got line of sight as to whether that payment will be pushed through by the federal government again. So it is a space that the team have been engaging with the federal government to get more clarity, and that's also been happening through the Local Government Association of Queensland and more broadly through through ALGA, the Australian Local Government Association. So it is a risk. Again, having those cash balances does mitigate that risk somewhat, but we're not clear at the moment whether we'll see that payment tomorrow. But yeah, just highlighting the risk again to council.
Thank you. Any further questions? Do we have somebody to move? Moved by Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Thank you. We move on to 5.6, Interim Audit Report 2023-2024.
Thank you. The Queensland Audit Office has undertaken the interim audit for 23-24 financial year. Audit assessed the design and implementation of council's internal controls relevant to the financial report and whether they are operating effectively. Audit assessed the key controls they intend to rely on in auditing council's financial statements. The audit does not assess all controls that management has implemented across the organisations. The result of the interim audit is summarised below. We had one significant deficiency and no other matters were raised in terms of our audit report. Management have already reviewed and implemented control systems to ensure further occurrences such as this are mitigated. All issues will be reviewed in detail and retested during the final audit, which is due to commence on the 26th of August 2024. Just in relation to that particular significant finding, this was entering into a large-size contractual arrangement without first inviting written tenders. The implication is that the executed contract was not in accordance with Council's procurement policy and is not compliant with the Local Government Regulation 2012. Our response to this has been that we have acknowledged the significant finding. A review of the procurement policy, procurement governance has led to changes in including the implementation of a procurement review board commencing the 1st of July 2024, which will ensure that occurrences such as this are mitigated. In addition, the strengthened use of the Tech 1 contracts module, introduction of a forward procurement plan, and regular training will further enhance capability and governance of procurement across the organisation.
Thank you. So, given that we have this finding, and well done to those who did find it, and we have made the changes that need to happen. So I see that we've got a procurement review board. Who will actually sit on the review board?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a number of officers that will be sitting on this review board, and these are officers with experience around procurement, contracts, commercial, governance, finance. So the CEO will sit on this board, the Director of Commercial Services, Director of Infrastructure Services, myself as the Director, Manager Finance, Manager Governance, and Manager Procurement. So there'll be a number of people with varied experience that can provide greater oversight. And as we all know, many eyes is usually a much better process than one.
Yeah, very good. And how often will that? Often will they meet? Like, will it be a regulated meeting? Like, will it be 3 monthly, or will it be at the time needed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our terms of reference were published in the May LGM. We will meet monthly. Those dates are actually set in stone in our terms of reference. Our first meeting is starting on the 17th of July, so it will be a regular standing once a month meeting.
And those findings will be published for?
We will certainly have minutes, and yes, we are more than prepared to make those minutes of those meetings public if that is what council would wish.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I was just going to add, for I guess better transparency for the community. So the transaction and the contract that was entered into is actually for the stinger nets that council have across the region. So Uninet, they own that technology, they provide that technology. So council have in our May local government meeting actually included Uninet on their sole specialised and confidential nature supplier list. And again, for transparency, council have now put that list available to the public. So if you go on that list and review, right. Uninet are now the number 86 on that list, and their provision of stinger nets were developed, designed by the owner Uninet Enclosure Systems in 1982. They own the concept, and therefore no other company can create or supply the stinger nets. So Uninet Enclosure Systems are the only provider nationwide. So the technical point there is that exemption that that does exist under our local government regulations. 235 means that if they weren't on that list, or there wasn't a specific resolution by council at that time, that tenders need to be sought. But there is a matter addressing that further in the agenda today as well.
Thank you. Thanks for the explanation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to highlight, in terms of providing those minutes and copies, I would put the proviso. There might be some suppliers listening over there. We wouldn't be publishing any information which is considered commercial, so they can rest assured any of that sort of information would not be published.
Very good. Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a comment that, this report again is indicative of the continuous improvement that has been rolling through this organisation. It's very rare to see the deficiencies down quite so low and dealt with quite so quickly. But and I'm not saying that this organisation is never going to have deficiencies come forward. It's a good piece of work by the audit committee and the auditors to keep us in that place. But seeing the work's done on this, and I know governance is not necessarily the sexy stuff in local government, but governance does rock, and the work's done by the team and working with the auditors, both internal and external. It's great to see this report and that indication of the continuous improvement of our Cassowary Coast Regional Council punching above their weight as usual. So great work, thank you.
That's
Happy to
right.
move.
Yeah, sure. And further to that, anybody can make a mistake anywhere along the line. We're only human, and it's good work that it got picked up, and they've come up with a concept that's going to filter that through and make it a little less for next time. So thank you. So anybody want to second that? Councillor Jessup, all in favour? Thank you. Carried. Move on to 5.7, 2024 to 2027 Works for Queensland program.
In May 2025, the Queensland Government released the $300 million of 2024-27 Works for Queensland program to support 65 councils outside of South East Queensland to deliver local projects that create jobs, deliver better infrastructure and services, and improve the lives of Queenslanders now and into the future. The aim of the program is to provide funding to eligible councils to deliver infrastructure, planning, maintenance, and capability development projects which support essential services or contribute to community economic development or council sustainability. Eligible councils receive funding based on a $1.5 million base allocation and an amount calculated using population and unemployment figures for each local government area. The Cassowary Coast Regional Council received $4.91 million. You'll find in attachment 1, it outlines the program guidelines and the eligibility criteria. It's really important to note that we can't use it to buy plant and equipment items and operational expenditure. Project proposals must be submitted by the 5th of July 2024 and works must be completed by the 30th of June 2027. We've identified 21 projects that are outlined in attachment 2 as key areas of need and meeting the criteria under the Works for Queensland program. If you turn to attachment 2, I will briefly go through those projects. Condition assessments for various SPS assets, water security strategy, Hyatt Street Stage 3 water main construction, Carmel Street water main replacement, Tully's Civic Centre upgrade, Innisfail Library, and this is the refurbishment due to implementation of a university hub, stormwater asset condition surveys, coastal monitoring program establishment, Port of Marillion priority development area planning, facilities solar cleaning program, Extend Illuminate Innisfail project, McGowan Drive car park repaint, asset management data collection for bridges and culverts, Mundu Aerodrome Improvement Priority Action Plan, our planning scheme, waste strategy, capability development projects, township signage, Johnston River vegetation management, Tully CBD enhancements, and the Tully Grandstand Management Transition Plan. It is recommended that Council approve the projects outlined in attachment 2 for submission to the Works for Queensland funding program, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 2009, delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to finalise any and all matters associated with making and execution of the submission. Councillor Chewy.
Thank you, through the chair. I think one of the first things I learned as a councillor to love Works for Queensland. It was very exciting when I first learned about it. Could I just ask the CEO to briefly go through and explain the guidelines and what it does? I know it was covered what it doesn't, but if you could just in layman's terms explain how the money can be used, please.
Through the chair, well, it is it's $4.9 million worth of funding for our council across 3 years. So these works are spread across the 3 years. The guidelines were amended this year, and the guidelines have now allowed for some of that funding to go towards planning projects as well as increasing capability, but that is capped in the funding. But primarily the funding is to be invested into works that generate increased employment and employment opportunities through the delivery of capital works and some operating works in there as well. So officers working with council have tried to provide a broad spectrum of projects that will deliver on some of those aspirations that council and the community have.
Thank you. I think just going through the list that's there, it's a very broad list, and the whole of the Cassowary Coast will certainly benefit. So very grateful, as I said, for the Works for Queensland. Thank you.
Great job, Councillor Pervin.
Yeah. Firstly, thanks, Mayor. I'd like to thank the Queensland Government for continuing the Works of Queensland project. It's brilliant. You know, at the LGAQ conference every year, there's always a motion put forward to continue it and get more funding for it. And all the councils in Queensland, they support this. So I dare say at the LGAQ conference again this year, that will be there on the table again. And good to see our council will be supporting that, I hope.
Thank you, Councillor Pervin. Any more questions? Happy to move. Moved by Councillor Chewy.
Through the chair, I was just going to briefly touch on probably the most significant project that we have got in there at the moment is the Tully Civic Centre works, and just to highlight and thank Noel and Sylvia for being here today. You know, some people often say, look, our meetings aren't open to the public. They absolutely are, but looking around the room at the cables, the stairs to get up here, you know, I guess the technology that was put together when COVID first hit. This project really is about improving accessibility for our community to these council meetings and to council, and through that, yeah, certainly creating a hub, so that One Coast, Cassowary Coast hub, where there is a central point where community can come and interact with council and council officers. So really excited that that project, as it progresses forward, will provide more opportunity for people to attend our council meetings, more accessibility to those meetings, but also provide better access through our live stream of those meetings as well. So those people that are looking to come and take advantage of the public questions and the opportunity to ask public questions, or just to come and actually witness and be a part of our council meetings, will have a better opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Yeah, and I too also want to thank the Queensland Government for Works for Queensland, because without that, there would be a number of significant projects that we wouldn't be able to afford to do. So it's wonderful to see that we are getting that assistance. Do we have, so we had a mover, Councillor Chewy, Councillor Pervin seconded it, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Go to 5.9. Request for leave of absence for Councillor McLeod. Oh, have I missed one? Oh, I have too, sorry. Late report at 5.8, late report updating on rating advisory committee recommendations. Sorry about that.
That's not, thank you, Mayor. You highlighted that this report was coming yesterday in your budget speech, and I'm going to go through in detail more information about those recommendations that we agreed to. At the local government meeting on 24 April 24, Council received feedback and findings from community consultation on the Draft Advisory Committee, RAC, recommendations conducted during 29 January 2024 to 14th of April 2024. The RAC recommended that Council implement the 11 recommendations during the term of Council. Council has now considered the 11 recommendations for general rates going forward at the Cassowary Coast Regional Council, made by the Rating Advisory Committee, and feedback received from the community consultation. Of the 11 recommendations, Council has made a decision to support 3 recommendations in full and 2 in part, effective from the start of the new budget for 24-25. The remaining recommendations will be reconsidered throughout the term of Council as appropriate. The details of the RAC recommendations to be implemented effective from the start of the new budget are as follows. Recommendations fully supported. Recommendation 5. Over the term of Council, the vacant commercial and vacant industrial categories be amalgamated into their respective categories. Council supported Recommendation 7 to match the working outlined in Figure 32, page 44 of the RAC report, which states Harbour Industries A increased to 600 of the base and Harbour Industries B 300. Recommendation 11, Council split the other categories based on the definition of principal place of residence. Recommendations partly supported. Recommendation 4, over the term of Council, the rate in the dollar for multi-use units increase from currently 75% of residential base rate to 80% of the residential base rate. Council has partly supported this recommendation with an increase of categories 6 and 7 from 75% to 77.5%, and an increase of category 8, 20, 21 and 22 from 72.5% to 75%. Recommendation 6, separate accommodation assessments from commercial category. maintained the minimum rate and over the term of council increased the major shops rate in the dollar to be the same as Island Resort A, serviced resort. Council has partially supported this recommendation by establishing a new category for accommodation assessments and in the first instance increasing the rate in the dollar for major shops halfway to the same as the rate in the dollar for island resorts. The total revenue for implementing the above recommendations is $253,061 during the 24-25 budget year. Note, a letter was sent to a number of categories to validate and ensure accuracy of their current details. Letters have been sent to 1. Accommodation category, commercial ratepayers who've had a land use code of either hotel and tavern, accommodation hotel or motel, caravan parks. 2. Transformer category, commercial ratepayers who've had a land use code of utility installation, which are being reconsidered as part of the new transformer category. 3. Other non-principal place of residence, ratepayers currently within the other category who have another property in the council region or postal address is different to the property address into the other not principal place of residence. And 4. Primary producers into A, sugarcane, B, livestock, C, horticulture, D, forestry and logging, and E, aquaculture. Yep.
So the Rating Advisory Committee, the information received during the consultation period is very valuable, and although we have not put all the recommendations into immediate action, Council will continue working on these throughout the term to accommodate implementation of some of the other recommendations where appropriate. So with the letter going out, we've had a lot of feedback, and we just wanted to reassure people that that was only the first step in some of the recommendations. So simply what we did was separate categories so we could understand who was in what category. If you don't agree with any of those, with the letters that you receive, please contact Council because they'll be able to talk you through it. And if you think that it's been unfairly changed or that, they'll sit with you and go through the process. Some of them aren't right, some of them are right. It's just a sifting through the pile, I guess. It's quite a large job, piece of work. Thank the team. It's taken a lot of time and won't be sorted in 5 minutes. So, yeah, if you have any issues with it, just contact one of the council representatives, either your councillor or ring the 1300 number and someone will help you through it. Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important, another one. I think it's important to note that this is a data collecting process in itself at the moment. Data is king, thank you. I'm becoming predictable, obviously. I was trying to be unpredictable and not say that. Probably an important point to raise is, and you did bring it up, there's a lot of points of the recommendations that haven't been taken into point yet, and they will be considered over the term and may be implemented where appropriate. One question I wanted to just reiterate is that the agriculture has been broken out now into 5 separate categories. The rates in the dollar in this space have not changed at all. They still remain as were agreed to in the budget. There's no separate rating in the dollar for any of these separate categories. Is that correct?
Chair, that is correct, Councillor Baines.
Yeah.
So we have made no decisions in terms of the rate in the dollar in those categories.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll go to 5.9. Request for leave of absence for Councillor McLeod.
That was quite a report.
Through you, Chair, this is a fairly simple report. We have received a request for a leave of absence from Councillor Renee McLeod from the period Friday 28th of June 2024 to Sunday 7th of July 2024 inclusive. and it's due to a death in the family. And Councillor, we pass on our condolences to you and your family from all of us here at Council. And there's a recommendation there, and the recommendation for consideration is that Councillor Renee McLeod's request for a leave of absence for the period Friday 28 June 24 to Sunday 7 July 2024 inclusive be approved.
Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Jessup. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Yes, we can. We'll just take a break for 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back. We move on to 6, Asset Sustainability, 6.1, Stormwater Asset Management Plan, and Mr Goodman will present. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Millwood. Councillors, before I start today, I just want to acknowledge the significant amount of work that's been done to put this, present this report to you today by Mr McAvoy. As a relatively recent addition to our team and adds significant value in this area. Mr McAvoy is, I would say, more than 90% responsible for the development of this asset management plan, and would present it here today, but is the current, or I shouldn't say but, and is the acting Manager Asset Engineering, and has asked me to present on his behalf so that he can undertake some other urgent works. Councillors, I will just say I'm having a crack at doing this digitally today, and so I might take some time to jump from one page to the other, so apologies for that, but I'm going to have a crack at it. The Asset Management Plan details information about stormwater infrastructure assets with actions required to provide an agreed level of service while outlining associated risks. The plan defines the services to be provided, how the services are provided, and what funds are required to provide over a 10-year planning period. Asset management planning is a legislative requirement under the Local Government Act 2009 and Regulations 2012. It is required to provide a forecast period of 10 years to inform planned budgets within the long-term financial plan. The Asset Management Plan identifies allocation in the planned budget, the long-term financial plan, is currently insufficient to continue providing existing services at levels for the planning period, predominantly in the life cycle areas of renewals, performance of assets against levels of service, and at the current funding levels, our best information we could provide is if we continue to fund at the current levels, services will decline over the 10-year period. There are other things influencing our asset management plan stormwater, and that is future demand. And so issues such as climate change, and particularly our ambitious population growth targets, have potential to significantly impact our requirements in the area of stormwater. Critical risks to the stormwater asset portfolio are identified, and treatment plans for those risks are provided and costed. It's worthwhile taking a step back and defining, I think, what is stormwater. So it covers infrastructure assets that are designed or actively managed by council for collecting, storing, treating, conveying or attenuating stormwater. These are stormwater assets which fit within the urban footprint as defined by the planning scheme. The sort of assets that are include manholes, pipes, head walls, floodgates, inlet pits, gross pollutant traps, box culverts, pipes, and tideflex coastal outlets. That's not an exhaustive list, but gives a good indication. The current replacement cost of these assets sits at $97 million. It's also maybe worth talking about some of the things which are not included in this asset management plan. Those are curb and channel in the, well, it doesn't matter, but they are predominantly in the urban area, rural culverts, bridges, causeways, floodways, and open drains. One of the bigger issues I wish to draw to your attention, councillors, is that the stormwater asset data available to inform this asset management plan is considered of low or uncertain confidence. To provide a quality asset management plan, it is one of the key areas that we're looking to improve, is the confidence in the quality of the data which informs our asset management planning. It's also worthwhile pointing out that within the, hang on while I flick pages here, within the yeah, there it is. Within the actual, it's not within the report, but within the asset management plan itself, there are reference to a significant amount of works done within the previously. So between 2012 and 2016, there was a master drainage program works undertaken, understanding local stormwater performance within our urban areas, and then there was further work undertaken in 2018 to prioritise upgrades, and that was undertaken by consultancy GenEng. That identified around $25 million in stormwater asset upgrades that could be considered by council. So some of the areas that were considered priorities include a Curramine Beach, Innisfail Estate, areas of Mission Beach, Tully and Silkwood. It is worth noting that the asset management plan that's recommended to you today does not include that $25 million worth of upgrades. It is based on current understanding of renewal requirements. Yeah, I say that with one caveat, and the Mission Beach upgrades that were identified or deficiencies will be upgraded and resolved as part of the Mission Beach CBD upgrade works, which are have commenced.
Which is how the whole project started in the beginning, isn't it?
It is what drove the certainly the infrastructure services team's recommendations for prioritisation of starting that is that the quality of the stormwater was at significant risk.
Thank you for that very in-depth conversation.
I've got just a couple of other things if I could. With regard with risk, there's a number of risk management improvements, and I guess the one that I would highlight that I'm most pleased with progress already is that this plan identifies the need to improve the quality of our data, particularly in the condition of our critical assets, and the plan recommends developing an asset condition and inspection program and implementation of that. The costs of that are $80,000 per annum, and I'm very pleased to note that in the budget that was adopted yesterday that the funds were allowed to get on with that work. So that it will assist us significantly. And so I guess in terms of the improvement plan of where this report would, this asset management plan would focus on areas of improving our management of stormwater assets over the next 5 years is, I'll just pick a few of the highlights there, is developing an asset condition inspection program and implementation of that, developing a plan and process to reach life cycle costing targets based on risk-based prioritisation and quality data. One of the other issues that we will be working, we'll be recommending to council to progress is developing a stormwater asset tenure prioritisation plan. If I can sort of de-jargonise that.
I was going to say, can you elaborate on that?
So there are a number of our key assets where council has no existing tenure over those assets. So some of our key stormwater assets runs under businesses. This is more predominant in Innisfail, but it's certainly not exclusively to Innisfail, where if there's one day there will be failure, or required. Hopefully we can get before there's failure and plan to renew. But at the moment we have no legal access to those assets to renew, replace, repair. So that's something that we want to recommend resolving within the life of this asset management plan. And one of the other ones that there's some significant potential for is reinforced concrete pipe relining. So rather than the basis of all our estimates at the moment are to dig things out and replace them with new one, to reline, reuse, and do that with much less disturbance and lower costs.
There's some pretty good, what do you say, technical, help me out. Yeah, that's the word. Technological ways of doing these things now, as you say, rather than just digging it up and ripping it out. There's those machines that just go in and put a lining inside. It's quite amazing.
There's relining, pipe bursting. One of the issues with relining is you take away a little bit of the capacity of the existing stormwater, but there are others technology as well, and so we want to advance our understanding and consideration of those types of projects over the course of this hopefully adopted asset management plan.
And there again, these asset management plans are very important because, like, these are the type of assets, again, like sewerage and water pipes, that people don't actually see and never really take into consideration the cost and how much there actually is under the ground. So yeah, good job. So have you read the recommendation, Dave?
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yes, so the recommendation is that Council adopt the Stormwater Asset Management Plan as an overarching document to manage the stormwater asset portfolio and inform related financial documents such as the long-term financial plan.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to move this motion, but I would like to ask Mr. Goodman to reiterate his comments with Mr. McAvoy about the great work he's done in this space. And before I get reminded, because this sort of information, data is king, this is providing us the avenue of where we need to be over the next few years. Probably could allow us to look at adjusting budgets in the future.
Yeah.
We're better off being in front of things rather than if something fails. Mr. Goodman, I note that the asset management plan isn't actually attached to the report. Is it possible that we could get a copy of the asset management plan in the future? I'm assuming it'll be a great read about 11 o'clock in the evening on the veranda with a cup of tea.
Councillors, if it's not attached, then we should bring this back to you at the next meeting. I think on my agenda it's attached.
Oh, is it? It just may not be attached on mine. Oh, yeah, I'm going through the shortcuts.
It is.
Yeah.
Sorry, my apologies, Mr. Goodman. Well, I will sit on the veranda this evening at 11 o'clock with a cup of tea. And have a good read. Scottish tea.
Yeah.
Do we have any further questions? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Chewy. All in favour? And great work again to the team. Sort of provides a bit more fresh reading for those that want to have a read, and spells out all of the stuff that needs to be costed when looking at underground assets. So it's good.
Thank you, Mayor Millwood. I would actually think this reading is a sobering reading rather than fresh reading. This is the asset class where we have the least faith in the data that we have to inform what council's obligations and what you're going to need to do over the next 10 years. So that is a message I would like you to take home, and thank you for and congratulate you on the adoption, that part of all of the budget that was adopted yesterday, but particularly with this, the investment in improving our will allow us to improve our knowledge in this area.
Thank you. We shall move on. Planning 7.1, and Mr. Horton will present.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Council, item 7.1, it's material change of use for an undefined use. 6 self-contained camping sites on land described as Lot 3 on RP 732964, located at 2224 Tully Mission Beach Road, Mission Beach. The application, council, as I said, is for short-term recreational vehicles, self-contained. On the property, there is raw materials and glows and a cafe component to that at the current time. This is as you drive in the driveway, council, off Tully Mission Beach Road, it's to the right, and outside the revegetated area that is part of the conditions with the helipad. The property was, the application I should say, was impact accessible, council. There was no submissions made on that application. With the application as well, it required referral to SARA, which then referred to DTMR for the access provisions to the property. They have conditioned an upgrade to that access to this facility, which is attached in the conditions, council. As per the recommendation, council is approved for the 6 campsites to be installed, subject to conditions. So some of those conditions, as we talk about, is in the development, is condition 2, limitations of use. So there's an overnight stays, a limit to maximum of 7 nights in any 21-day period. It also says that the recreation vehicle has to have adequate toilet, shower and grey water facilities. All waste must be captured, removed and disposed at a lawful dump point. There's no dump point to be installed in this facility. Just advise council this property is on-site. It's not actually connected to the sewage scheme at Mission Beach, as we only have a pressure main out the front. The other components to the conditions, council, in condition 5 is dogs. No dogs are permitted on the site in association with the stay of the RV park. So that's there. There's also a site management plan around movement within the site with the internal traffic network and so forth. The other general ones around on-site caretakers, maximum occupancy to that 6 vehicles, council and so forth. So look, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Chewy.
Sorry, thank you, through the chair. Could you just explain, Mr. Horton, that is currently in the 80 kilometre an hour zone on that road? So when you talk about DTMR, could you explain potentially what road works? Because we know it is 80 and some people tend to go a little more. So I'm just concerned about traffic hazards with vehicles turning in. So could you explain what criteria must be met? Thank you.
Through the chair, they've conditioned that roadworks for upgrade to the turn-offs to that facility need to be installed as part of this development. So that'll be your main short-term turn-off into your left and your right into that property. So from both ways. So that is a condition of main roads. So they'll have to acquire a road permit from them for those works. They'll finalise that. They'll come and inspect that and so forth, and that's part of those conditions.
And obviously
prior to starting.
at their costing as well.
At their cost,
Yeah,
yes. Through the chair.
Well, that was my question too. My question was about the access going in and out, and the other question I had was in relation to what the meaning of short term, which you have explained, 7 days maximum in a 21-day period. So thank you for that.
Yeah, through the chair, Madam Mayor, that condition's in there to override and clarify those stays, because in the scheme, short-term accommodation talks about 3 months.
Yes,
so
yes.
In order to override that, you need to condition that in the development, and that's why it's done that way.
Very good. And there was one more thing, sorry. It was about self-contained, which does not include juicy vans or anything like that, does it?
No, through the
No.
chair, the conditions reflect that. for
Okay,
this
thank you.
development.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask that same question because people seem to have a very mixed and wide concept of what self-contained actually means, and it does not mean a bucket in the back of your juice van. So
No.
thank you very much.
Are there any more questions? Do we have a mover? Moved by councillor Chewy, seconded by councillor McLeod. All in favour? Carried. 7.2.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's an application for reduction in infrastructure charges related to MCU 2410. It was a dual occupancy. It was approved under delegation council. As part of that development, as we know, with the property, they get an infrastructure charge that they don't have to pay with a normal dwelling house. As soon as you build an additional dwelling house, which is a duplex, two dwellings on the property, the charge sets in to offset impact to our infrastructure. So the charge there, council, was $29,339.55 as per the regulated charge under the State Government Act. So the recommendation is for that 100% reduction. The criteria for it is met within this area. So it's talking about in here, it talks about the establishment of that dual. It's 2 by 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom dwelling, site coverage approximately 35.6, so there's ample private space there. Maximum height of 4.4, single garage for both units, private open space, landscaping, so forth. So it's in that new part of Elliott Road at 45. We numbered that street not long ago. So we did the 11 lots there. And so far, yeah, we've had a pretty good uptake and all the blocks are sold in there. I think we got 6 dwellings and this duplex going on there. So council has recommended for approval for the offset. As we understand, the other one I spoke about is we've upgraded some of the systems over there in Pump Station 26, I think, under funding. I think was 2020 off the top of my head with Works for Queensland at that time. So there's ample room within our capacity at the current time. So, yeah, happy to recommend it to council.
Very good. Any questions? Moved by councillor Baines, seconded by councillor Pervin. All those in favour? Very good. Carried. 7.3. Over to you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Council, application for reduction infrastructure charges as well relating to MCU 2338 was for a childcare centre and caretakers accommodation at 149 Victoria Street in Cardwell, which come to council not that long ago for approval. So as part of that, the infrastructure charges notice was issued. There was an amount of $23,471.64. That's excluding that component for sewerage because we don't have sewer in Cardwell, so that portion's worked out and taken out of that charge because we can only charge for what infrastructure we currently have at the current time. So the recommendations for potential 100% reduction, we went through the eligibility criteria. It's in the appropriate zone. The facility, childcare is something that we're chasing throughout the region, not just in Cardwell, for more purpose. So it's a maximum of 40 children, associated caretakers accommodation for the managers and so forth to run this facility. Council, look, it meets the requirements that we've assessed and it's recommended for approval, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd just like to say I'd like to move this because I think it's good to see Cardwell getting something. You can hopefully we want more young families moving into Cardwell, and if we get Portingford up and going again, we might see a lot of young people families moving to Cardwell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Support 100%. Thank you.
Yep. So moved by councillor Reid. Seconded by councillor Pervin. All in favour? Great. Carried. Thank you. We move on to general business. Anybody got any general business? Councillor Chewy.
Yes, thank you. Just through the chair, just a couple of things. Firstly, as Pastor Rob said, my heartfelt thank you to the town of Tully and district for the warmth and excitement that was shared throughout the weekend of the Tully 100 celebrations, the dinner dance, the book fair, the street parade, the cemetery tours. were well and truly supported and appreciated by those who live here and those who came home. Thank you to Council for their contribution. Thank you to the councillors for participating and all those that made it happen. So, yeah, from me to you, thank you. I'm getting a bit emotional now.
Thank you.
Just recover myself. Just like to also remind everybody that my other passion in life, the Tully Show, is coming up. Their working bees have started at the Tully Showgrounds on Saturday mornings if people would like to be interested. The show guidebooks are out available now, so I'm hoping that people will enter their photos and their cakes and things like that. We had good weather for Tully 100. Let's hope it comes back for the Tully Show. And also just like to thank our team, JL, can't think what's JL's name?
Napier.
Yes, our comms team. Ms Bricado and Ms Napier were down at, and Councillor McLeod might like to talk on this as well, at Mission Beach to talk through the business houses to how to make the Shop Local Mission Beach campaign work. It was great to see the people that were there. There were some wonderful ideas and our team have put forward some great ideas. I just would like to hope and think that this can be supported by council, but it's not being led by council. It's up to the businesses to work with each other to create some sense of excitement and wanting to be there. As I said, there were some great ideas; those were there. So I'm hoping that the business community of Mission Beach and beyond will reach out and become part of this, because as we talked about yesterday in the budget, that is the Mission Beach revitalisation is definitely going ahead. It's very exciting, and let's everybody embrace it and move it forward as a collective. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further general business? No? So we'll now move into the confidential reports. Do I read those out? Number 1 is contract award for CCW 00094, Management Services Contract, Tully Aquatic Centre, Mission Beach Aquatic Centre and Cardwell Aquatic Centres. Number 2, 4-year contract for Stinger Nets hire and operations. And 3, DRFA project management services. Can somebody move that we go out? Moved by Councillor Pervin, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? Thank you.
Through the chair, just worth just confirming that those reports are confidential under section 254J13 of the local government regs, which permit that to be closed to the public, and that's due to negotiations relating to commercial matters involving the local government, for which a public discussion would likely prejudice the interest of the local government. Close it.
Morning
all. Sorry.
We'll just move back in. Moved by councillor Bain, seconded by councillor Pervin. All in favour? Going back into focus. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to note the attached evaluation and recommendation report for public tender COW 000094 and adopt the recommendation to award the management services contracts for Tully, Cardwell and Mission Beach Aquatic Centres. The term of the proposed contract is 3 years plus 2 additional 12-month options. And I'll just touch very quickly on the annual fees for each site there, which landed at, and the recommendation refers to the CEO to finalise the negotiations on this contract, but we don't expect any further movement in these fees. Mission Beach Aquatic Centre, the annual fee in year 1 is $171,000. The Tully Aquatic Centre is $164,400. And the Cardwell Aquatic Centre is $130,500. As part of the tender process, the submissions from the tenderers also looked at the entry fees for each site as well. And part of this recommendation is that there is a 50-cent increase for entry fees across the site, and this resulted in a fairly significant annual saving to the fees proposed by the tenderers. So therefore, it's recommended that Council acknowledge the recommendation report for the from the evaluation panel for the public tender CCW 000069 and award the management services contracts to A. Mission Beach Aquatic Centre, Grimsey Aquatics Pty Ltd, Tully Aquatic Centre, Grimsey Aquatics Pty Ltd, and Cardwell Aquatic Centre, June Margaret Cotter. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate the final terms and conditions of the management agreements for Grimsey Aquatics PL and June Cotter for a maximum term of 5 years, including options, and authorise the Chief Executive Officer to make any necessary budget amendments to accommodate the execution of new management agreements in the 2024 Budget Review 1 in September 2024.
Councillor Chewy.
Thank you. I'm happy to move it. I just would like to thank the team for doing this and acknowledge, I believe myself, well, I know I have, and I believe the other councillors have received letters of support for Grimsey's. Obviously, you know, when public come forward to support and want to see the current providers in there to continue their service, they must be doing something right. So I congratulate Grimsey on such a good outcome for our community. And thank those that did take the time to report back to us how pleased they are with their work, and I'm sure they will now be pleased to know that nothing will change as far as the management rights go. Thank you.
Sure, I too got some of those emails, and I'm also under the impression that they were pretty happy with the one in Cardwell as well. So I'm sure this will make the community very happy. So you've moved it, Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Pervin. Are there any other comments? All in favour? Thank you. Move on to 9.2. Mr. Goodman will present.
Thank you, Mayor Millwood, councillors. Councillors, this report recommends that council enter into a contract for the hire of 4 fit-for-purpose stinger net swimming enclosures and operator services for a period of 4 years from 1 July 2024 to 30 June 2028. The previous contract with the council entered into with Uninet Enclosures Systems has been terminated. This, if council supports this recommendation, will enable us to re-establish a contract with Uninet and provide those StingerNet services to the community as we have in the past. as in terms of the current levels of service that we have provided as a council to the community with stinger nets across the region. The recommendation, Council, is that the Council note that the Uninet enclosure systems are currently a sole supplier as per section 235B of the Local Government Regulation 2012. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a contract with Uninet Enclosure Systems for a 4-year period for the hire of 4 fit-for-purpose stinger net swimming enclosures and operator services for the period of 4 years from 1 July 2024 to 30 June 2028. In accordance with the Local Government Act 2009, delegate authority of the Chief Executive Officer to enter into that contract, negotiate, finalise and execute any and all matters associated with or in relation to the contract subject to Council's normal procurement policies and practices. And note that the anticipated expenditure for the total contract is anticipated to be $1.436 million excluding GST across that 4-year period.
Okay, so I've got a question. I've got what is there flexibility within the contract if we decide that we may not need all, or if we want to change the way we do things?
Yes, Mayor Millwood, the contract terms that we have negotiated with Uninet to date include provision for termination or of part or all of the contract at any time without, I guess, at our pleasure.
So if we've got to take those nets in and out, do we need to pay extra for that?
The answer to that is the normal process for putting nets in and taking nets out is covered under the contract.
And do you think
if there are additional works which are not anticipated, there is a possibility that council may have to pay additional contract through the contract.
Do you think there's an opportunity that we could maybe put a bean counter there and actually monitor how often these nets are used?
Again, Mayor Millwood, happy to commit the team to provide significantly more additional information to council in the certainly long before this contract is terminated. At the 4-year end, it can be terminated earlier in terms of usage of these stinger nets and the value that's associated with that on a per user basis.
Yeah, probably more just a comment, but I had an in-depth conversation with the Surf Lifesavers a few weeks back, and there's a few questions. I suppose there's a lot of questions that we need to sit down and think about in regards to the false sense of security that they give to people, and just other important things that should be considered, as they are a considerable cost to the ratepayers. But anyway, we can get to that sort of conversation another day. Any other questions for Mr. Goodman in relation to the nets? No? Someone want to move? Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor McLeod. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 9.3, DRFA funding. It's not
Thank you,
funding,
Mayor.
it's project management, sorry.
Yeah, certainly comes associated with the funding that we're lucky enough to receive through the DRFA funding arrangements. Councillors, the purpose of this report is a recommendation that we appoint a contractor for project management services, CCW 000277, project manager associated with the works associated with the works that are generated by damage to our essential public assets associated with Tropical Cyclone Jasper and continued and associated flooding. It is not just that one-off event. We're well aware of the additional flooding events that happened and continued damage to our infrastructure with a prolonged wet season. So particularly though, it was instigated by a tropical cyclone Jasper across the coast as a Category 2 system on 13th of December 2023. Council has been activated for this event for a range of disaster assistance through the Joint State and Commonwealth DRFA. If I have to, I'll explain it again, and then hopefully I can just stick to that for the remainder of the report. Disaster relief funding arrangements to address immediate and long-term impacts from these events. It's a cost-sharing arrangement between the Commonwealth, state and its territories. In Queensland, the program is managed on a whole-of-government basis by the Queensland Reconstruction Authority. Our preliminary estimates for the total cost of completing reconstruction works, that's reconstruction of essential public assets, sit within the range of $30 to $40 million. We certainly don't have yet final approval from the QRA, and that is based on our current unit rates, which based on, I guess it's also worth noting, the very significant amount of works in DRFA that we'll be looking to deliver by our northern neighbours who have been, most of them significantly more impacted than Cassowary Coast, and they will be out there competing for contractors at the same time for us in a large way. So there's likelihood that our unit rates will be exceeded. The benefits are that if we get on and deliver this in a timely manner, the QRA will approve actual costs rather than anticipated costs. In looking to proceed with this procurement, multiple proposals were received using a local buy panel arrangement to complete the project management of the delivery of these works. The recommended consultant is based on a combined assessment of price, experience, methodology, local content and available resources. The consultant team is planned to include a project manager, multiple works inspectors and supporting roles that cover cost control and technical support. Councillors, the recommendation is that Council accept the schedule of rates tender for TC Jasper DRFA project management services as submitted by Shepherd Services for the forecast amount of $1,837,735, and in accordance with the Local Government Act 2009, delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into a contract, negotiate, finalise and execute any and all matters associated with or in relation to the contract, subject to Council's normal procurement policies and practices.
Councillor Pervin.
Mr. Goodman, just a question. The figure there that will for the contract, will we be reimbursed through the DRFA for this project management of these projects?
Through the chair, yes. Project management is delivered in this way is 100% refundable. If we were to take this on in-house, it's likely to not be funded. If it's taken on in-house with existing those that are on our existing staff, there's always a grey area, but this is very clear. If we engage external consultants with project management, this is part of the scope of works that is agreed to be funded by the Queensland Reconstruction Authority.
Moved by Councillor Pervin. I just have a comment. Suggested to me on the radio this morning in an interview that Cassowary Coast wasn't affected by Cyclone Jasper. I just have to look here and just have a look at one part of it, which is our roads, 30 to 40 million. I think that's a significant cost to council and effect from the cyclone. So yeah, it's good to see that we can apply for this. Once we receive the final approval, well, who knows when that'll be, but anyway, when should we see some of this work being implemented? Do you know, or is that another one of those how long's a piece of string?
Mayor, it's a fairly short piece. It is a how long is a piece of string, but in this case, so I can't give you an exact date, but it is a fairly short piece of string. We are appointing now project managers will assist us accelerate procurement. We anticipate doing things slightly different that haven't been in the past, going through a procurement process at the same time that we are waiting for most, particularly in our unsealed roads, I would say, or I am saying, we're doing those in parallel. So we're doing the procurement at the same time that we are waiting for final approval, rather than wait for the final approval and then go and do procurement. So it will depend. We would not recommend to council that we award a contract prior to getting approval, final approval from the Queensland Reconstruction Authority. I think there's too much financial risk going down that path. But we appointing these project managers will help us accelerate that. So our current program is to deliver a very significant amount of this works prior to the next wet season. So we would hope to see a lot of particularly those damage on our unsealed road network delivered prior to Christmas. And that puts us at a very a different standing to some of our neighbours, and without naming those councils as an example, one of our near neighbours in very recent times awarded a contract for their unsealed road repairs for the damage that occurred in early 2023. So we're working aggressively to get project managers on board, do the procurement. All of our submissions are made, particularly for the unsealed roads area, and we wait for the approval. We can hopefully award contracts almost immediately once we get that approval and get on with work.
It puts us ahead of the game, doesn't it? So we're ready to go when the money does turn up. So that's a good thing. So moved by Councillor Purvin, was that right? Seconded by Councillor McLeod. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. And that brings our meeting to a close at 11:24. Thank you very much.